There's this big debate over who are the better trial lawyers. Are they the criminal lawyers or are they the civil lawyers? Specifically, the personal injury lawyers. I spent almost 25 years of my career doing criminal law. I was a prosecutor, a criminal defense lawyer. And let me tell you, we used to joke about the personal injury lawyers, how they weren't real trial lawyers, how we were the only real lawyers that were practicing in these courthouses. And the truth is, we were in trial a lot more for sure. When I was a prosecutor, I could be in trial a couple times a week, and it was phenomenal training ground. And when I was a criminal defense lawyer, I was in trial sometimes a couple times a month. And man, I thought I was the best thing since sliced bread in that courtroom. I rarely lost, certainly as a prosecutor. And as a criminal defense lawyer, I don't think I lost that much either. I'm sure I won close to 90% of the cases that I had, whether they were dismissed or if you ended up going to trial, you certainly won a lot of them. Because in the criminal courthouse, as a defense lawyer, the burden is on the government to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that your client is guilty of what they've charged him with. Let me break that down. Beyond a reasonable doubt basically means that the government has to exclude all reasonable doubt as to every single element of the charge. And if the jury has a doubt, even one doubt, so long as it's reasonable, they are instructed by the judge that they must acquit. And guess what? Yes, you need a unanimous jury of 6 or 12 to set your client free, just like the government needs the full 6 in a misdemeanor or 12 in a felony to convict. If you have just one that disagrees with the rest of the pack, it's a hung jury, which means your client gets to walk free at least that day, and it often leads to a much better result. So I'm not taking anything away from my brothers and sisters who practice every day in the criminal courthouse, because it's a tough place to be and it's an important job. But it wasn't until I started doing personal injury that I realized just how talented and incredible some of the lawyers were in the personal injury world. It's also a much more difficult place to be. When I was trying criminal cases, oftentimes we did it with very little preparation. You'd grab the offense report, you'd read it. In fact, I remember one time, prosecutor came into my court and said, "Hey, we need help trying a case next door. Shellist, do you want to come over and try it?" I said, "Heck yeah." So I grabbed the file. I think it was a burglary case. I had never looked at the file before. The jury was out in the hall. I read the offense report while the judge was talking to the jury in the courtroom. I had about 10 minutes to read the offense report. And then the judge said, "All right, state, go ahead and proceed with jury selection." So I picked a jury. 10 minutes. That's all I prepared. We tried the case and I got a guilty verdict. It was easy. On the criminal defense side, certainly we prepared more than that, but again, you're reading offense reports, listening to 911 calls, making up crap on the fly. You're getting creative as hell. It's like the Wild West as a criminal defense lawyer. Now, in the civil courts, it's a much different process. First of all, there is a god-awful amount of motions that go back and forth amongst good lawyers on the civil side. You're battling out things over evidence and discovery. You're taking depositions. Oftentimes there are lots of experts involved, and you've really got to know what you're doing. And then as you prepare for trial, you've got to go through all of these depositions that are sometimes hundreds of pages long. You've got to cut it down. You've got to decide what evidence you want to use in trial. You've got to disclose so much more. And it really takes, I would say, a lot more work. And then let's talk about once you get into the courtroom. On the criminal defense side, you're talking about concepts like the Fifth Amendment and, not letting an innocent person go to jail. And beyond a reasonable doubt, the highest burden in the country. People understand those concepts. They understand the gravity of it and the importance of it. Now let's flip. You're going into the civil courthouse as a plaintiff's lawyer. Now what are you asking for? You're not asking for freedom for your client. You're asking for money. It's a lot harder to go into court and talk to a jury about money and get them to award large amounts to your client when they don't know your client. They don't know you. They're hardworking people. They oftentimes don't make a lot of money. They can't grasp the concept. Everyone grasps the concept of freedom. Everyone grasps the concept of bad police work, wrongfully accused, false accusations. That's what's on TV every day. That's what the news covers are criminal cases. It's everywhere. Civil? Wait, you want me to give money to your client because they were hurt? I never got money when I was hurt. It's a tougher place to be. It is a lot harder to get into that civil courtroom and get that jury fired up to pay your client millions of dollars. But yet there are $100 million verdicts, billion-dollar verdicts fairly often because these lawyers are freaking incredible at what they do. Their ability to convince juries to care about the harm that was caused to their clients, their ability to be angry at the big corporations and their inability to follow rules and their reckless behavior and to hold them accountable. It really is a joy to watch. Again, I've watched my fair share of great criminal defense lawyers, great prosecutors try cases, and it's fun to watch, and they're good lawyers. But when you watch a really good civil lawyer who can get those juries fired up about money and injuries, it is a thing of beauty. It is a thing of beauty. So here's my final thought. The best plaintiffs lawyers in the world, the best personal injury lawyers in the world, they're in a different league than the best criminal defense lawyers. I said it. I've been on both sides. I've played in both arenas, so I think I'm qualified to talk about it. You may disagree, but these are facts.